everybody, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to the Art of Games. My name's Keegan Larwin. I'm a New York City-based visual effects artist, motion graphics designer, normal designer, look dev artist. Wear a lot of hats these days. And today we're looking at Bioshock Infinite, one of my favorite games personally, especially art-wise. And essentially what this series is designed to do is just break down the look and feel of games and kind of explain why they make us feel how they feel, and all the work that the artists put in to all of these different environments, characters, and design and visual effects. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff to look at, especially in this game. So let's jump right in. Main game, obviously, right off the bat, I mean, this art is just absolutely beautiful. We're gonna do a new game, and we're gonna overwrite because who cares? And not a lot of fighting. And already, I mean, this is, yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it, don't worry.
Are you afraid of God?
No. I'm afraid of you.
Love a black screen with just voiceover with some slight reverb, great. Don't always love the quote at the beginning. I've been guilty of this. I've made a couple movies where there's a quote at the beginning, but it works here. Also great font. Great sharp serifs.
As compared to what? Standing?
Not standing.
Fade in.
Rowing? Planned on it?
So you expect me to shoulder the burden?
No. I do expect you to do all the rowing.
And why is that?
Coming here was your idea.
My idea.
I made it
So we already open on this like beautiful scene of this foggy ocean. You see the silhouette
Imagine that's wonderful, actually.
and the lens flare
The entire
of the lighthouse in the background, just kind of ominously looming as you get rowed all the way up to this thing.
Experiment knowing one can fail.
One does not undertake an experiment knowing one has failed.
Can we get back to the rowing?
I suggest you do. We're never going to get there.
No. I mean, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would assist.
Perhaps you should ask him. I imagine he has a greater interest in getting there than I do.
I suppose he does. There's no point in asking.
Why not?
Because he doesn't row.
He doesn't row.
Slowly but surely, the lighthouse is revealed. And that's honestly, it's an amazing technique that they use. They use it in film too. They really make you wait for the big reveal of the lighthouse. If you play the game, you know a lighthouse is coming. If you don't play the game, you're kind of surprised by this, like, whoa, this huge looming lighthouse in the distance. We'll get to the lighthouse later. So already, these characters look great. This swinging lantern looks pretty good. We're gonna climb this ladder. Great, and they frame up the lighthouse right there.
Him when we'll be returning.
Would that change anything?
It might give him some comfort.
So the rain on the boat looks so good. This is something that
Somebody meeting me here? I'd certainly hope so.
sorry, I get so engrossed by the dialogue. I mean, this is such a good. If you haven't played this game, immediately after you watch this video, go to Steam and get it. It's probably like $5 or something. So one thing that it does immediately jump out to me here is the ocean. Now this ocean, by game standards, is pretty okay. You'll notice that it's kind of the same displacement texture, creating the waves, but it's clearly tessellated. You can see where it loops multiple times in different spots. And then on top of that, you have like this foamy texture that doesn't really correspond with the waves. Now in real life, when a wave crests, that's when you start to get the foam. And when you're doing like complex simulations and like Houdini especially, or like P-Flow, or thinking particles or something, I don't know. I'm trying to think of all the particle simulation plugins and software I can think of. In Houdini, we'll say, it calculates when you get that foam generation, which would make it look like a realistic ocean. But obviously, game developers don't have time, they don't have the resources, and most importantly, your computer doesn't have the resources to calculate all that in real time. So what they do is have these clever solutions. Now, to contrast that, look over here at this water. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You know, the foam is still a little bit floaty, but it doesn't matter quite as much because you have these beautiful kind of twinkling specular highlights in the water that just make it feel real, make it feel like the rain droplets are impacting the water. Just so nice. And on this dock here, you can also see that as the rain hits, there's an occasional little bit of a particle splash, just adding that nice little detail of life. Here on the shore, you have these nice water sprites. These are just still images of a big water splash that are scaled in this nice way that makes it feel like a wave. Again, when you look at it, you're like, all right, this doesn't look that realistic, but when you come back here and look at it from afar, you know, it gives you this great feeling, this water crashing against the rocks. So again, a lot of designing environments, and this you would call VFX for games, is trying to do a lot with a little. And it's something that I really love about game development. So already, let's just take a look at this asset of this door. It's a beautiful door. Clearly, it hasn't... Usually when you make a door, you would make one panel, and then you would duplicate that panel and reverse it. But this is clearly a bespoke door that's made for just this purpose. And I mean, already there's just so much craftsmanship that's gone into this game so far.
Excuse me, it's Booker DeWitt. I guess you're expecting me?
So we've got this kind of old-timey music playing on a gramophone. I think it's a gramophone. My music history professor would be pretty mad at me if I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's a gramophone. You've got this like interesting cross-stitch, bronze-framed thing. It says, "Of thy sins shall I wash thee." We've got a basin here and some towels, some towelettes. Very considerate of them. Nice little reflection. Yeah, some nice scrapes at the bottom of that basin. Just such a great shot. So this is kind of the quintessential Bioshock moment where you open the gates of the lighthouse for the first time and you kind of see the first red flag of many that you will shortly encounter. So this is Bioshock Infinite, like I said, and it was released in 2013 by Irrational Games, which no longer exists, unfortunately. The mastermind behind it all was kind of Kevin... Oh my gosh. You see these beautiful shadows on the wall? Like, it's like the shadows from the raindrops coming down. Those obviously don't exist because there is no window anywhere for that to be projecting. Like, literally, where is this light coming from? It's supposed to be coming from out there. But again, lighting in video games is generally rasterized. It's not ray traced. If it is ray traced, it's like a pre-baked situation. So even though this isn't physically accurate or correct to what this lighting would actually look like, you got to admit, that looks beautiful. It is a beautiful frame right there. There's just a hint of bloom coming off the walls, and when the lightning strikes, I mean, that's just a great frame right there. So yeah, sorry, totally interrupted. Kevin Levine, is it Kevin Levine? Or is that the guy from... Uh-oh. I think it's Kevin Levine is the guy who developed this game with Irrational Games. If it's not, sorry to Kevin Levine, who might or might not be in Imagine Dragons. Yeah, so it was published by 2K, developed by Irrational, who no longer exists. There's a lot of internet drama about that, so you can look it up if you want to. But essentially, Bioshock, it belongs to 2K. Is there going to be another Bioshock game? I don't know. We don't know. We'll see. By me saying that, I'm making sure this episode does not age well. So right off the bat, let's just kind of look at this environment design here. Something that's unique to video games as a medium in general is the ability to let the viewer discover the story for themselves. It's something that video games uniquely have the ability to do that you can't do in a movie. In a movie, the camera has to direct where you look. The camera's like, oh, look at this thing, look at this map, look at this note. The camera's telling you to do that. In theater, it's usually big objects that are, because you have to be able to see it from far away. So it's literally a little too overstated to have kind of the subtlety that video games are. Subtlety in video games are not two words I usually put together, but honestly, there is a lot of subtlety to this storytelling. You could, as a player, choose to just walk right past this to the next staircase, or you could stop for a minute and be like, okay, there's phones, documents. Clearly, they're charting the path of something across the U.S. There's a note that says, "Be prepared, he's on his way, you must stop him." There's departures and returns. Already, they're giving you a lot of little snippets of details without you having any idea what's going on. And all of this stuff becomes relevant later. It's a reason why I just love video games and love this kind of storytelling. The environment artists and the level designers who just built this room did an incredible job. So props to them. If you can't tell already, I'm a huge fan of this game. The art is just incredible. God, these streaks of waters coming across this cross-stitch framed thing. It's just so good. And again, there's no window. This is supposed to be moonlight coming in, but we don't see a moon. We don't see any of these windows illuminated. It doesn't make any physical sense, but it looks so good. Woof. Bad day at the office. So there's not a lot to add here. Again, you get these incidents of storytelling here where you kind of see these like torture implements. This guy's got a bag on his head. There's something written in his blood. There's a cigarette still lit. You know, these are things like in a book you would have a description. You know, like Booker walked into the dimly lit room. A cigarette still lit sat on the ashtray on the table beside his body, slouched, hands behind his back. You know, it's all these like details that an author strives to tell you when they're writing a story. But in a video game, it's all there for you to take in however way you please and adjust. And it's going to be a slightly different experience for every person. And that's just something about that's just amazing. Also should be noted that this light has a nice little pre-baked fall off here. It's flickering. Again, not physically accurate, really. It's a lot closer though. And just dang it, it looks good. So here's a nice little touch. You can this is something that most people probably wouldn't even notice, but you can see in the distance there's a shoreline, and man, this just looks great. Let me just frame that up for you. There, take a screenshot. Take a screenshot. Oh no, there's something in the way. Oh yeah, take a screenshot. I mean, this is just it's a beautiful frame. The sky is a little whack. But clouds are like notoriously incredibly hard. They don't actually render volumes because that would require ray tracing. So they kind of have like little tricks. It's usually just sprites or like layers of textures, which it is in this case. You have like the dark layer, the slightly less dark layer, and everything because it's kind of blurred in the distance. You can't really tell. It's a decent sky, not gonna lie. It's pretty good for a video game. But yeah, I mean, it's just this island or shoreline or whatever it is in the distance. It tells us so much with just one glance. You know, clearly we're not far from the shore. Clearly there's civilization nearby. And this is something that the camera never draws your attention to. It's just something in the background that you notice subconsciously, but you don't actually really stop to look at it. Which is part of the reason why I'm even doing this series, because there's so much of that in games, and so much of the artistry is just you completely miss it. You don't consciously see it. I am noticing though, really quick here, these raindrop textures look a little whack. You see this, I don't know if you can see it in the compression, but there's like a line where the texture doesn't tessellate. Which again, not a big deal. Video games are very hard to develop, and like things like that are inevitable. Yeah, you can see the texture tessellating, or lack thereof. You can see it, the tiles, or what we would call them. But games are like super hard to produce, honestly, and like little tiny things like this, you can overlook them because the artistry in the game is so great. And like, think about the guy who had to design this like angel here. Like someone went in to like ZBrush or something, or 3ds Max, and sculpted this. Took a whole day to sculpt this, and then like made a low poly version so it could be put into the game. And it looks just great. The guy who made this, millions of people have seen his art, but probably no one knows his name. Think about how crazy that is. Oh, did I mess this up? Man, I could have play back the footage. Tell me if I did that right the first time, because I'm pretty sure I did. Definitely did the second time. Got these great, beautiful volumetric rays coming down from the sky. Anytime you see something you would call like God rays, we call it volumetrics or volumetric rays. It's just kind of like the light, very directional light scattering through a volume or like a fog or something like that. When I say volume, I'm generally referring to like smoke. Water would also count. Anything that is like partially opaque. Like you could call this a volume, but generally when we talk about volumetrics, we're talking about mostly atmosphere, sky, stuff like that. All right, so I'm gonna let this next part just kind of play out without talking over it, just so you can kind of see and hear it. Some things to think about while we go down there is the use of a lot of volumetric light. I guess we can't see it anymore. A lot of volumetric light, a lot of rays coming from the center and kind of pushing outwards to draw your eye. And also, there's a window that kind of draws a vignette around the whole thing, kind of giving it this old-timey feel. And you'll hear the music come in. It's like a slightly detuned honky-tonk piano. Just kind of listen and look at all these details and kind of think about all the different ways that this sequence is going to manipulate how you feel.
Make yourself ready, Pilgrim. The bindings are there as a safeguard.
No, God damn it!
Ascension. Ascension in the count of 5. Count of 4.
I think they hit a loading screen in there.
2. 1. Ascension. Ascension.
Just stay calm.
5,000 feet. 10,000 feet. 15,000 feet. Hallelujah.
Beautiful. I love that sequence. It's just incredible. And we'll talk a little bit more about the architecture and stuff. This is a great spot though. You see these volumetric rays coming through the window, passing through these pendulums, passing through all these words. You've got all the cogs for the clock tower in silhouette. I mean, this is good stuff. Like if they had a bit more resolution, this would be an amazing intro sequence for a movie. I mean, the artistry is there. It's really just the technology that's holding this image back at this point. And I think we're gonna land here on like a mural of Father. You can tell I played this game a few times. We're gonna land here on a mural, of Father Comstock, and just take a second to appreciate how beautiful this image is. We've got these volumetric rays again coming at you like this. Oh yeah. All the candles there flickering around randomly. And just look at the way that the bloom or glow, you might call it bloom in a video game, you see that setting in your settings bar. The way that the glow just brings all of these colors together and binds them into kind of one feeling is just really important. And there's good use of glow and there's bad use of glow. Like these candles, maybe a little gratuitous, but I mean, it's part of the aesthetic. But you definitely see in games when the glow is too much. This is a way where the glow is doing so much with so little. It's just great. And look at this stone banner here. And the prophet shall lead the people to the new Eden. So good. Let's take a look at these. This little book, the Word of the Prophet. So you can already tell. You could tell earlier, but you can already tell the Christian imagery in this game is extremely strong, and they're really hitting us over the head with it right now. You've got some song that my music history teacher would also be mad at me for not remembering, just like a gospel song, old school. I can't remember the name, but you've got this this gospel music playing in the background. One thing to point out. Just a nice little detail to notice is these candles. Fire is extremely hard. It's very, very hard. It's hard to do for even Hollywood. You see a lot of people burst into flames in movies and you're like, that's not real. It's because fire is really hard. And I think the solution they made here is incredible. Essentially all this is a small image texture with a flame on it, with like a transparency level knocked out. And the flame is just essentially this picture you see of a little flame. And they have its anchor point down at the bottom here, and they're just setting it to wiggle randomly. And it's not even illuminating light, it just has a bloom effect on it. And really, it's just, especially all together, it doesn't matter. You don't care because you're so engrossed in this that it's just beautiful. Another thing I just noticed is all these dust particles floating in the air. It might be hard to see with the compression, but there's all these little particles kind of slowly, gently coming down. Just great. This waterfall is incredible too. And again, all these like water splashes coming up, they're just sprites. They're just like little pictures. They might be animated bitmaps that are just set to just come up randomly to kind of give you that feeling of splashing. And really what it's mostly about, especially in video games, especially in this video game, it's not so much photorealism as it is about creating a mood and creating a feeling. And already we're getting so much of that, even as we turn to this frame. This beautiful frame. I mean, look at this. Without the UI, this is a desktop background if you're like an insane person. Because I mean, yeah, it's an ironic desktop background maybe. You get these nice distorted reflections in the water. So let's just talk really quickly. Let me just frame this up really quick because it's, like I said, it's just beautiful. Let's just talk a little bit about kind of the inception of this game. So it is Kevin Levine. You know, it is Kevin Levine because Adam Levine is the Imagine Dragons guy. Apologies for the confusion. Definitely Kevin Levine. So this game takes place in kind of the turn of the century America, 1900s. The Gilded Age is kind of coming to a close. I'm not super great with history, so I'm not going to say anything super exact. But it's just toward the Gilded Age was kind of the end of the 1800s, and this is kind of the very beginning of the 1900s, dawn of the 20th century. And around this time, there was a lot of what we call, I think it's called jingoism, which is basically just like extreme patriotism. Right after the Spanish-American War, Spain sold or turned over the rights to or whatever of the Philippines to America. So America now had the Philippines kind of out in the distance. And it kind of began this like period of what we would call new imperialism, which is when, Europeans and the people in the American countries started colonializing again. Maybe not as aggressively as they had in the past, but the Philippines was definitely part of that. And there's this famous passage that Kevin Levine drew inspiration for this whole game from, where essentially after the Philippines were sold to the US, President McKinley was like, what do we do? What do we do with the Philippines? So one night in the White House, he was like praying, and he like came to this realization, like, we need to go into the Philippines and we need to educate them and we need to Christianize them and we need to turn them essentially into like augmented white people. And I don't mean that in the sense of like literally turn their skin white, but like take the ideals of American exceptionalism and Christianity and bring that to other people. That was his mission. And that passage that he wrote, perhaps in his memoir, I can't remember the exact source, I'll link it, was basically where the whole inspiration for this entire game came from. So these themes of, expansionist America, American idealism, or American exceptionalism, jingoism, Christianity, obviously, especially this period of time. America was not nearly as secular as it is today. So how incredibly Christian it is. All of these aesthetics and attitudes are what push themselves through this game. And I think they did a great job doing that. So let's keep moving. Just the blue light here is beautiful. All these like lilies or perhaps roses. Yeah, they're roses. Roses kind of having things break up your reflections are like, incredibly nice. It just gives a sense of depth. Here.
Where am I? Heaven. Or as close as we'll see till judgment.
Just want to hear what that guy said. Here, the reflections are like pretty pure. Like they're definitely wobbly. You get the distorted reflections, and it looks nice. But something about this frame, just like take that in for a second. Look at how the roses on the water break up that reflection. And once again, the bloom and glow here is just doing absolute wonders. The atmospheric perspective, how things are kind of look faded the further away they are. You've got some slight fog coming down, and of course, these God rays. This beautiful volumetric lighting. Okay, let's keep moving. There's a lot of amazing frames at the beginning of this game, so I just wanted to point them out for you. Oh, one last thing besides me. You know, every time I play this game, I see this crazy, like the water coming down the steps, and what I think every time is like, that's so dangerous. Like, Columbia's not ADA compliant, for sure. Yeah. If you're disabled or you're not getting down these stairs. One thing to point out is these caustic lights. Caustics are something we'll talk about a little bit later too. Basically what caustics are if you're ever in a pool and you see kind of like these like wobbly, liney reflections on the bottom of the pool, it's really the light acting as a lens and refocusing the light. So essentially what this is supposed to look like is caustics from this light coming down, hitting the water, and projecting these caustic reflections and refractions onto the wall. Now what's really happening is just all these textures, even in the shadows, which is unrealistic, have basically an animated bitmap on top of them that's built to look like caustics. So of course it's not photoreal. It's not even like physically real, but it looks really good. And it just creates this beautiful kind of, you know, feeling as you're going down these steps.
And every year,
Whoa.
this day,
I forgot how big this place was.
we recommit ourselves to us.
It's like
Father Christ, we recommit
it's like Moria down here.
and the giving of thanks, and by submerging our spirits in the sweet waters.
Got a little bit of atmospheric perspective here. You see that woman is almost silhouetted the further back I move. And let's just take a look at the color contrast here. We've got the nice oranges of this spot, and then we've got the blues of the blue sky out there. I mean, that's a nice looking frame. Orange and blue, as you know, are maybe some of the most used colors. Color pairing, because they go together. They're complements, as you'd say, complementary.
Is it someone,
So you'll see a lot of orange and blue,
someone from the southern below?
which I'll talk about later. But there's a lot of misconception about orange and blue, or orange and teal.
Our founders and our Lord.
I just need passage into the city.
Passage to the city.
Oh, they're all looking at me. It's very weird.
Brother, they
Yeah, okay, here's some gratuitous bloom. You see the glow coming off of this woman's head. Might be a little gratuitous, but I mean, it's part of the aesthetic.
Hey, I'm just looking to pass through.
Okay, this is where it gets weird. This guy has no, you'll see it later, he has no pupils, which is like alarming.
I baptize you in the name of our
See the caustics on the steps.
founders and the name of our
They look really good. Again, not ADA compliant.
I don't know, brothers and sisters, but this one doesn't look clean to me.
So now we're jumping into a flashback. Again, note the environmental design. Just on the desk. The desk tells you a story of Booker's state. You know, you've got these race forms betting on horses, probably. You've got his badge. Clearly he's a detective or some kind of government agent. But also alcohol and cigarettes everywhere.
Go away.
This is his dingy-ass office. He doesn't have any kind of sheet on that gross mattress. Woof. Kids, put sheets on your mattresses. And let's just look at this door for a second. That's beautiful. The environment people did a great job. Look at the texture on this wall. I mean, it's super low res and you can see the thing, but from afar, man, that wallpaper looks good. All right. Oh, hey, I know that place. Though, a few things wrong. There were mountains in that picture? No mountains. At least I can't see any. Also, the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building are not that close together. I mean, they're pretty close. They're both in Midtown, but it's beside the point. Oh, yes. This... Oh, this Ben Franklin makes me laugh. And George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. It's so good. It's like, I mean, it's I don't know, I don't think it's supposed to be funny. It is supposed, I mean, maybe a little bit. This is definitely a good example of taking this imagery of like these the founding fathers like splicing their heads onto like these, you know, buff dudes with togas on. You know, it's a very Hellenistic Neo-Greek. Like, I mean, look at the sandals. You know, the founding fathers didn't wear that, but here's the thing: there's a long tradition in American politics of projecting your ideas onto the founding fathers, because for whatever reason, the one thing everyone can agree upon is that the founding fathers were like good dudes, which is like debatable. But both sides of the aisle, Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, liberals, libertarians, socialists, whatever, they all kind of have this idea of like, well, the founding fathers said this, which we interpret to be that. It's almost like the Bible at this point, of like us just projecting what we want onto the founding fathers, which is why you have all these different schools of political thought. And this is a great callback to that, as you see these volumetric rays. Ooh, I like that shot. You see this lens flare? Nice. But you get this great, this is a great almost political allegory, you know, saying like, even Columbia has taken our founding fathers and projected kind of what their ideal of them is. And I think that's a really important and very, maybe not so subtle here, but it's a very important way to establish Columbia and this whole city and civilization. It's a really, really important detail, which is why they put it here, I think. Also, some fun thing to note, there's a lot of atmosphere. You can see these rays, a lot of atmosphere, but none of that is reflected in the pool. See how it's completely blue and then it's like hazy blue? Basically, that's because this isn't actually reflecting the light correctly, because it's all rasterized. Ray tracing, full ray tracing, you would actually be able to see this atmosphere reflected here because it's an image being reflected. But again, not a criticism. Ray tracing is so heavy, most people can't do it. And this was back in 2013 when ray tracing in games was like a pipe dream. So even though it's not physically based, like I said, it's still gorgeous. All of this is gorgeous.
Our prophet fills our lungs with water, so they may better love the air.
So something to note about this is, even though clearly there have been red flags galore, like there was literally a dead guy we walked past, Columbia is actually pretty beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. And it's gorgeous on purpose. I think a lot of times it's easy to think that perhaps this is supposed to be ironically beautiful, or that because terrible things happen here, it can't be a beautiful place. But I think part of the beauty of this game especially is that it is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. Like, this is a place, if like this weirdo wasn't here and if all these weirdos were gone, I would love to like live here and hang out with my friends here. Like, it is absolutely beautiful. And the cognitive dissonance of a beautiful place where terrible things happen is like, it's used in art everywhere, in every different medium. And it's being used right here. Beautiful place with terrible things inside it. These rose bushes are pretty nice too. Also note the hummingbird. Hummingbirds are kind of a symbol in most art to use as like kind of a paradise, a place that's peaceful, a quiet grove. So they're using these hummingbirds pretty gratuitously. It's kind of like the symbol of this peaceful place. And it's something you don't even think about usually. There's another one. You don't even think about what hummingbirds represent. But the fact that they're there gives you a feeling, gives you an idea. And they're using so many different, like this ivy and this Hellenistic architecture, just to kind of show you that this is a paradise with red flags.
Just because the city flies don't mean it ain't got its fair share of fools.
There it is, Booker.
Still got a girl to find.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And we're getting another red flag. Anytime anyone talks about the seed of something, that's a no-go. That's a no for me. Beautiful door. I mean, it's just an incredible shot. You listen to this beautiful violin music. Again, the game wants you to think this is beautiful. The game is agreeing that this is beautiful. That doesn't mean bad things can't happen there.
Good to see you.
I bet we could have something arranged.
So let's chat a little bit about the kind of visual aesthetic that this is going for. Obviously, there's a lot of different styles of architecture. A lot of different time periods represented here. You have this like Philadelphia, like neo-colonial kind of look with like straight up the Liberty Bell. And you've got these arches with this like Hellenistic, you know, Neo-Greek look. Kind of, I think these are French. These little things that connect the wall to the ceiling, I believe. I can't remember what they're called. And then you've got kind of like this, like these buildings that look like, you know, they're in like New York somewhere. Kind of like new turn of the century modern architecture. And a lot of this is, what? Random interaction. A lot of this is actually drawn from the World's Fair, which is famously in Chicago. And I actually have a few images I brought up just so you can have them fresh in your mind. Here's an image taken of the Columbian World Fair in Chicago. And just kind of look at all the different pieces of imagery and how similar they are. We have these same like Hellenistic revival columns. It might even be Hellenistic. Well, yeah, I guess Hellenistic revival. You know, you've got these lions, these statues, you know, the water features, these bridges with also more modern elements like a Ferris wheel. Here's a great picture and a great example. That last frame we saw of Father Comstock is this exactly. I mean, it's the giant statues, huge water features, American flags everywhere to be seen, these grand lawns. You can tell how much, and the artists themselves, and Kevin Levine himself has said that so much of the art and the inspiration for this game came from the Columbian Exposition and the World Fair. Here's an example of like the marionette and the kind of mosque-looking structure here, kind of trying to represent multiple world cultures. We'll see that in kind of a twisted way, but we'll see it. And this picture is super low res, but it just really illustrates the same color theory of you kind of have the magentas at the top, and then you kind of fade into orange and yellow, and then the blue shadows, and then all of that reflected in the pool. That is the color aesthetic that Columbia employs and what this game has employed. All right, let's jump back in. So there you go. You've got the oranges of the building and you've got the blues of the sky. I mean, it's just beautifully done. All these volume metrics are just beautifully done.
I just think it fails to capture Father Comstock's absolute, divinity.
So, already here with this like interaction, this random NPC interaction. I guess it's not random; it's scripted. You got these two people looking at this giant gratuitous statue, saying, "Oh, this doesn't look like this. This fails to capture his glory," basically, which is like the kind of like ultra patriotism, like we were talking about, jingoism, or you know, the new colonialism or new imperialism, I guess. Really kind of giving you a similar sense of like when you saw like pictures of Iraq when people were like under Saddam Hussein's dictatorship, or especially like North Korea, you know, where people, you know, they address Kim Jong-un as our glorious leader. You are starting to get trickles of that in here as well. And you know, I mean, if the guy trying to ground you wasn't a red flag enough, and the dead guy wasn't a red flag enough, like this is also a pretty big red flag. All right, let's keep moving here. This beautiful square. I just like to hop into this Hudson Suits and Cloaks. Cloaks. Is this like where Harry gets his cloak? We just never see it. Is this Diagon Alley? Nah. Oh, I love this sign. Nice heeled little sign there.
Never hire an artist, my dear fellow. They are a temperamental and unreliable lot to a man.
We are not temperamental or unreliable.
Far behind schedule. The landscaping is half finished. The statuary hasn't arrived. The fountain is full of rainwater.
The statuary hasn't arrived.
The marigolds are still unplanted. All work which should have been done months ago.
This guy's very white.
Do you know what he told me? He said that he was tired. That the work had taken much from him. I said, good God, man, don't tell me about details. Just get it done. Almost finished down there? Yes, sir.
Wow. So, something you might have noticed, some of you might have noticed, is that everyone in this town is white, and that's gonna come back a little bit later. But just some important detail to notice. Just looking around at some of the assets here. Oh, this cash register. So the previous Bioshocks, Bioshock 1 and 2, had a very definite Art Deco style, and though this game is not necessarily adhere to that a little bit more. This definitely looks like a French interior to me, especially the ceilings. Oh my gosh. This cash register, like how it's like gaudy and gold, very much strikes me as an Art Deco sort of inspired thing. So a lot of those motifs from the original games still present here. Also, look at this window display. It's just gorgeous. Like, you don't really see games that like inspire this amount of beauty anymore. Everyone who worked on like the lighting and the models and the texturing, I mean, look at the texture on, like the colors on this. Like the model's super low res, but just the way this has been colored, it's just like some next level stuff. Like even movies can't get this right a lot of times. So props to whoever worked on that. Oh, look at how the store window kind of glosses over, but not uniformly. Just like nice little touches, little details like that just really sell the world. All right, so we're gonna keep moving here. Got all this atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective is basically simulating literally the atmosphere. So the farther away the object is, the more kind of faded into the color of the atmosphere that it is. So as we look here, we see that the guy carrying the boy on his shoulder way in the distance is like barely visible. These kids playing in the fire hydrant are like a little bit visible, and then things right in front of us are just like normal. And we call that atmospheric perspective. It's like one of the keys to creating good composition, and boy, did they nail it here. Love these kids playing in the fountain. So here's probably maybe the first time, besides that giant rocket, that you can start to see how the Bioshock tech is kind of infusing itself with this turn-of-the-century art style. Oh, a parade. Forgot about this. Love a parade. Not gonna lie, love a parade. I mean, this art is just, it's really well done. Very well done. The Christian imagery is just very present. Also, something to note is this confetti. You'll notice that games love this. It doesn't have to be confetti. If you play any Battlefield game, there's just always particles raining from the sky. If it's like ash or debris or something. And it's a super effective technique, because if you just like look at this frame, for example, nothing's really moving. The only thing that's moving is like this ivy over here on the left and this tree on the right. But without it, there's not really any movement. I guess the sky is moving a little bit. But adding this particle simulator that's just shooting confetti, which is just little tiny planes, is just doing wonders for this scene. You can see that it's emitting like probably between here and the bridge, and then the particles delete right about here. And they don't even clip off. They just kind of scale down from 100% down to 0, which makes it not look like they're ending abruptly. Oh, again, it's like rose garden up here. A lot of this kind of New York City inspired.
Raffle and fair. Huh.
He's strong in the sword, but a bit weak in the keys.
I don't think I've ever gone over here. Got a nice building. You can actually see the bottom of that building where the model is supposed to be obstructed. Oh yes, we're gonna listen to this whole song because it's one of my favorite parts of this game. Again, Hummingbird. This cover of this song is like just incredible. I mean, it's next level. And the thing is, what's so great about this game is it creates art within art. Like this piece is just incredible. I mean, it's such a good. Something I love about this part of this game especially is all the different. I mean, the soundtrack of this game is incredible, just across the board, but the art within art of this game is just fantastic. I mean, this cover is incredible.
feel so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you. Without you. Without you.
So good, so good. Just amazing. Okay, so let's keep moving here. Something I did want to talk about, maybe we'll use these people, is a character design here. Let's just listen to them for a sec.
On me, John. I do not want to be some character out of I Married a Vox Populi. Now, do I?
So it should be noted that the characters in this game are not photorealistic, and they're not making any attempt to be. You can see that her eyes are just absolutely ginormous. You know, the texture is pretty bare bones. And it's really just trying to create the idea of a person, kind of like somewhere between a cartoon and reality. And that's something that's extremely important, especially for games, because games are at a point, especially as ray tracing isn't like 100% integrated with all games. It's not integrated with most games. You have to find ways to make things look real without making them photorealistic. And if you can create a character that's compelling, that character is real. Like if you watch the original animated Lion King, those characters, even though they're drawings of talking animals, they feel real because the character has been brought to life. And if you can do that, that's more important than making it look like a photo. So I think this game does a great job at doing that. These people aren't like hideous for the most part, though in a bit we'll see some, I think we'll see some examples of how that might not be true.
Yeah, that's where they said I'd find her.
Telegram, Mr. DeWitt. Telegram for you, sir.
DeWitt, stop.
Love that kid.
Do not alert Comstock to your presence. Stop. Whatever you do not pick number 77. Stop. Tess.
So here we've got a nice example of some good environments here. We've got those atmospheric rays. We've got atmospheric perspective. You can see that she's a little bit, the statue is a little bit faded and distant. We've got clouds kind of rolling in front of the feet, which just really sells you on how huge that thing is. It should also be noted, I want to point out that you see there's like more parts of the city in the distance here floating around. Those aren't actually 3D models. Those are actually planes, like a drawing, a matte painting, put on a plane with a transparency around it and just kind of pushed so far in the background that when you move side to side, you can't tell that it's not 3D. Like these, you can tell it's 3D as you move side to side because you can see things occlude others, and it's what we call parallax. But this is so far away that you can't see parallax. And honestly, it's one of the oldest tricks in the book. Movies use it, video games use it, and it looks great.
Why, good day to you, sir.
Hello.
So you can definitely see the World Fair influences here. Some Greatest Showman / Prestige vibes here. I really hope this is mocapped, and if it was, I want to see the footage of this, a guy in a mocap suit doing this.
Those are figures I'm talking about. Brought to you courtesy of Mr. Gerald.
Again, nice looking Philadelphia Greek revival looking building. Okay, well, this is something that I wanted to talk about with this game because this game was a little bit controversial when it came out, not so much anymore. But I think it is important just to recognize that there's definitely depictions of racism in this game, obviously. But there's been a lot of talk about the depictions of racist art in games. Obviously, this image, all these images are racist, and they're supposed to be racist. And it's not because the game itself has a racist ideology. It's very much the opposite. It's to inspire a negative reaction to racism. When you see racism depicted in a movie, it's not that the filmmaker is supporting racism, it's that the filmmaker is showing you racism and trying to get you to have a reaction to it. So in this game, the way it treats it, it's debatable. Irrational Games definitely left this game a little bit open to interpretation, which is not a good thing to do when you're dealing with racism. So I don't think that this game is without criticism, especially. But I did want to definitely address this because me as a white man looking at this, I obviously find these images like offensive and gross and stupid. I mean, it's clear that these people are not made to look human. this is someone who's generically from the Asian continent, not made. I mean, he looks like a dwarf. And this guy is somewhere from the African continent. He looks like a pit bull. Like it doesn't look like a real person. And part of that is, you know, the tenets of colonialization and imperialism are to dehumanize the others, so it's easier to conquer them and easier to treat them less than you would treat another human. And that's why art like this exists, just in general. And the reason why it exists here in this game is to show you that this is what the Colombians think of the rest of the world. This is how they see the rest of the world. They see them as others, they see them as lessers, they see them as enemies. This game is you literally shooting like brown, black, and Asian people for like tokens. And that doesn't necessarily mean the game's racist, but this is depicting an extremely racist thing. So it's important, especially if you are white, to keep in mind that the people who are represented by these racist depictions, people who are represented like this, are not going to see it the same way as you are, because these people are being directly targeted by art like this. So me as a white person, I can look at this and be like, oh yeah, that's like racist and terrible, and like these people are awful. But I'm not being directly targeted because I am of the same race as the people who are doing the targeting. So it's really important in games or any kind of media to really listen to the voices of the people being represented who are being oppressed, especially in contexts like this, to get their thoughts and create a discussion with them, because it's really important that it's not just, we're not just concerned about white people's feelings, we need to be concerned about everybody's feelings. So it's just something I want to address on here. Luckily, the game didn't have a lot of huge controversy, and most people who saw the game understood that these racist depictions were part of the game's storytelling and not intended to offend. But again, that being said, having the depictions there, regardless, does create some amount of harm. So it's a good thing to discuss. It's a good topic, something just to think about. And yeah, I just wanted to address that really quick because it is something that happens in this game, and I don't want to just walk past it. All right, so we got to rush through here to get to the end because we are running straight up out of time. Here's an interesting example where we'll see where she tries to be really seductive, but her character model is not seductive at all. Yeah, look, she's like, her eyes are rolled back, she's not even looking at you. You can see the inside of her mouth model and like her teeth. You can see her teeth right now, actually, and her like eyeball inside her model. Very weird. Did not land the way they wanted it to, I don't think. Okay, we don't care. We don't care.
Well, if it isn't Assemblyman Buford, your spot at the raffle awaits.
Oh, these two.
Heads.
Or tails.
Come on, let me through.
Heads.
Or tails.
We're gonna flip it.
Heads.
Told you. I never find that as satisfying as I'd imagined.
Chin up. There's always next time.
I suppose there is.
It's very nice animation there. A lot of animations in games are just kind of like built into a library and then applied to random characters, but these look like they were mocapped. If they weren't mocapped, they were definitely custom made. And if they were custom made, the animator who made those are incredible. Love it. It's got kind of some like Soviet inspired. Soviet-inspired propaganda. Oh, I love the inflatable Ben Franklin. And is that George Washington? Probably. So good. Interesting. I played this game, so I know what's going on, but equally weird. These balloons look great. Oh, there's so much I want to talk about. I mean, it's just this. Look at this. We'll look at it later. I mean, just the beauty of this environment is incredible. Just insane. All this volumetric lighting, the leaves falling, the rays coming through here. So that pretty overt racism becomes even more overt here. And if you've played the game, you know what happens. Yeah, things go south pretty quickly. But we're actually gonna head back to the skyline to wrap this episode up because it gets pretty violent and people are a little bit more sensitive to that kind of thing. I'm gonna try not to cover too much violence, try and really focus on the art of these games. So I'll kind of leave you here with this image, especially when I don't have a gun in the frame mucking it up. But when you look at these environments, you see that so many people put so much work into this, from the lighting, from those matte paintings, from these, oh, these clouds are really nice. These really, really nice clouds that people made. It's probably just a drawing up there that's kind of being scooted across the frame. You know, this ivy, these gates, all of this stuff was made by a team of hundreds and hundreds of artists. And what I want to accomplish with this series is to really, when you watch those credits roll at the end, waiting for that post-credits sequence, think about the hundreds of people who sacrificed relationships, spent long nights, spent years of their lives, probably took years off their lives, building these amazing environments for you to walk around in and explore and enjoy. So when you play a game and maybe you don't like it very much, it's easy just to be like, nah, I don't like it, and throw it away, without really taking a step back and appreciating all the work that people put into this. And I mean, honestly, especially in this game, it just paid off. I mean, everywhere you look here, you've got a painting in your frame. It's just incredible stuff. All right, team. Well, that's it for today. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a great day. I hope you still have a great day. I hope this video made you have a better day. From New York City, my name is Keegan Larwin. Have a great one. I'll see you next time on the Art of Games. Bye.